Hey guys, it's Enigma, also known as Amy, and happy Saturday. I hope you're having a lovely day. This build is going to bring us back to Henford-on-Bagley. If you watched the previous video, you know I took a little bit of an intermission, a brief break, and I built some university housing in Brightchester. We're back in Henford. I'm ready to sort of settle in and figure out what else I can do with this world. This is not, as you can see, not going to be residential. And if you can't tell that by looking at that, it's because there's not a ton of grass space. This is going to be, right now it's classed as a retail lot. It may end up being something else. I haven't play tested it yet, and I apologize for that because I usually try to play test before I do the voiceover. I just didn't have time, so I'm going to have to play test it afterwards, and it might have changed. But that'll be in the description, so it won't be like a surprise for you, but it's going to be a plot twist for me if I have to change it. But my premise for this is that this is a distillery that is no longer in use, and it has been repurposed into a kind of like a market space. So this is kind of divided into two sections on the interior. On one half you have tables that have merchandise for sale. On the other half you have a sort of bar setup. Now, I'm not imagining this is like, hey, let's go hang out with your friends, let's grab a drink. I'm thinking this is more so you're tasting and sampling products that have been made with things that have been sold here. I don't know if that sentence made sense. Let me give you an example just in case. So one of the items that you could purchase from here theoretically is honey. You can use honey to make things like mead. So I'm imagining if you're at the bar, you could sample mead or a honey product from the honey that's been sold or is on sale. I still don't know if that makes sense. I've had a lot of coffee at this point, guys, so like my brain is going a lot faster than my mouth. So stay tuned, buckle up. We're gonna get there in the end. As you can see, I've fleshed out the exterior. I am using those windows from, I think it's Island Living. I love those. I never get to use them, and they look exactly like the windows you see on a storage facility that houses bourbon barrels, so I was really excited about that. I also used a lot of the big open modern windows because I imagine they weren't there originally. That was part of the overhaul. And then you also may have noticed, I'm sure you did, that I built 5 skylines into the roof. Now the front, these 4 on the front, they don't show through into the exterior or into the interior. Sorry about that. I couldn't make it work. It looked weird. It looked choppy. It didn't spark joy. So I left them kind of covered up. They're really for aesthetic purposes only. The one in the back, the big one, is viewable from the interior. So when you're in that little atrium area, you can definitely see all the way through. It's really pretty. The light doesn't really stream in the correct way it should, but that's a game thing. That's not a roof piece thing, so it's fine. I decided to throw in a couple of fountains at the front. I wanted a feature statement. I'm also really just enjoying making fountains. I don't know, don't at me. It's just a thing, it's a phase. Well, it'll pass, as they always do. I put some gardening plots, but you'll see what I'm gonna do with that in just a moment. And then here are gonna be 2 really simple, not even flower beds. We're gonna call them greenery beds because there's absolutely no color. I initially placed these planter boxes. It just wasn't enough space, so I pulled them out. I was gonna have them in front of the fountains. They don't line up correctly, so I end up sizing them down by 1, or 2 of them down by 1, and then I get rid of the other 2 and I place benches instead. So the front of this is really just curb appeal. That's really all it is. It is a nice space. Like if you have a date here, like with your Sims, it is a nice space to sort of sit and chat. Hopefully there's not a lot of foot traffic. Nobody's gonna come up and crash your date. That's always super annoying. And then over here to the left, I am placing, I have 4 out, but yes, I placed 3 of these food trucks. I think one is a juice truck or a drink truck. I honestly don't know. The other one's a fish one, and then the one in the middle is one of the seasons fall vendors, and I can't remember what each one sells. I'm gonna play test it so I'll know. But I wanted 3 different ones that didn't look the exact same. I'm imagining that they switch out from time to time, so like as the seasons come through, because I built this in fall, not that you can tell because it changes it to summer, But like, I plan to switch these out as the seasons change. I don't want them to be the same every single time. That way when my Sims visit this lot, it's going to feel a little bit fresh. So that's my plan. You, of course, can leave it exactly as is if you choose to download this lot and use it. That's completely up to you. That's just where my where my head was at. I did give them a public bathroom. I honestly couldn't be bothered to fit one in here. I didn't want to sacrifice any space for a toilet, and I really don't like building bathrooms anyway, especially not in a community sense, because they're not personalized. They're just kind of boring. So cats and dogs came in clutch there. I almost used the one with base game, but the sidings were just a little too bright is the word I'm gonna use. Now, as you can see here, I'm building a pumpkin patch. I know you're gonna ask me why, because that doesn't really fit in with anything that I've told you. But I wanted to. That's really the answer. I really just wanted to do it. It felt like the thing to do. I also imagine that whoever owns this probably has their own table, their own booth on the interior, and there's an entire table that is for flour, randomly, don't ask, and pumpkins and canned pumpkin. So I thought maybe this is where they grow the pumpkins that they sell. They also sell actual pumpkin. So I went ahead and just sort of created this. Now, at the time of building this, I did not know that you could make the vegetables, the oversized vegetables, decoration only. So when I playtest, I'm going to go in and see if I can do that for each one. Otherwise, some of these are going to rot and you're going to have to throw them away. And that's going to be really annoying, but I decided that was worth it. That was a sacrifice I was willing to make. However, if I can turn them into decorative pumpkins, then this will purely be for show. So I might note that in the description. I might not. I make no promises because I'll probably forget. But if that's something I can do, that's something I will do. But I basically just placed a few different pumpkins. I used some of the ones from Seasons as well. Used all different colors because I think it looked better, and just placed a little garden wagon, and that was it for the pumpkin patch. So that was just a cute little thing that I felt like needed to happen. It makes sense? No. It makes no sense, but it's cute. It's The Sims. Things don't need to make sense in my head. So we're just adding some greenery to the exterior. I only do it to the front. I don't do it to the back. I'm imagining this was like our, carefully placed, and they only wanted it in the front because they wanted to give it that sort of like aged look. But around the sides and the back, it's been cut back because they don't need it. That's the more modern section of the build. So let me jump into the interior here. This is the sort of bar / tasting area I was kind of gibbering on about earlier. I used quite a mix of packs. I think I used Snowy Escape. I'm not sure. I know I used the heck out of Journey to Batu. That was a plot twist for me as well. Listen, I don't like the gameplay in that pack. I will not play it, but I love the build by objects, and for something like this, it just worked. I also use quite a bit of cats and dogs. This little detail right here is actually something I'm quite proud of. I did test this before moving on with the build just to make sure it was up high enough, and it's about it looks, if we were in a sim, it looks like it's about a foot above where their heads are, so it's up high enough in my opinion. But there is room to move it up higher if you want. And then I use these rain chains that we got from Snowy Escape, so I did use Snowy Escape. Oh, hiccups, excuse me. I used the rain chains to make it look like it was chained to the ceiling, and I am just pulling out a few drinks and pitchers and things like that, just to kind of make it look like people have been at this bar. I kind of tried to make it look like it's been used recently. Now, when you jump in, those will probably be bad, or your bartender will automatically try to clean them up. It's fine. They're not meant to really be there long-term, like permanent decoration. I just wanted it to look like they've had guests recently. That was my goal. I don't know if I succeeded, but sometimes it's the intention and not, the result. I do place the bar height tables from Cottage Living with the Journey to Batu chairs. I actually switched those out. I changed the table to the darker swatch, and I changed the stools to the base game industrial looking ones. It just looked a little bit better. You'll see that in the screenshots. I didn't record some of the changes I made, but I did go in and change a few of the color choices just because they blended in a little too much once it was all said and done, and I wanted things to stand out. I didn't want it to be too overwhelming of one particular color. At this point, as you can see, I'm still thinking it's retail, so I add 3 cash registers. I think they'll only use 1. I'm not really sure. It's been a really long time since I played with, I think that came with Get to Work. It's been a long time since I played with a retail lot because you can order everything from your computer, so you don't really need to visit like a store. But I'm just sort of throwing up some decorations. We've got some pins, we've got some loose receipts, a package that I'm imagining is something someone's purchasing. I do include a little chalkboard, which in my head is a little welcome sign, maybe with today's like special product or something like that. And I just throw in a few decorative elements, and then we jump over here into what's going to be the retail space. So I play around with these tables. I really wanted to make these shelves work, and they just don't. So those end up going away. Those 4, well, there's 5 now, but there will be 4 of those display tables. And then I decided to make a little sitting area. The sitting area isn't really necessary. I just needed something to fill in this corner that looked like it made sense, and I felt like this was a good choice, obviously, because I left it, but I like that the table looked like it was handmade because that's from Eco Lifestyle. I threw in some plants, some boxes and baskets as if somebody's come and unpacked their table for, you know, the day. Maybe the vendors change out. I'm not really sure. I did add a chair from Eco Lifestyle off camera. There will be a few little decorative pieces you won't see because I was so indecisive in this section in particular, and I had to jump back and forth in between live mode and build mode. So there will be quite a few cuts. There's also a lot of repetition, so kind of hold on. I'm sorry. I'm sorry in advance, but it was really the only way to do it. So I add up a few pendants. I did try to keep everything kind of dark as far as color scheme because I wanted the product, which is really bright, to be the star of the show. Now in here I do include this stump that's covered in mushrooms. I'm imagining in my head, because this was a distillery, that maybe that was the original tree that provided the wood for the first barrel that they ever used, and they've kind of memorialized it. That was my thought. It does seem pretty random. You can, of course, change that. If you don't like the way that looks, of course, get rid of it. Add whatever you want. You can leave it empty even. It's a nice little walkway. And then up here on these 2 little lofted areas, if you didn't notice me making them before, these are just displays. I'm imagining maybe they're barrels and things that got left behind. And kind of, if you've ever been to a Cracker Barrel, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's just kind of like decorative things that are suspended. You can't access it. You can't see it, but they're original pieces. Now, these are all the items I had my sim make. I think I have at least one of every single like canned product except for cowplant jam, because I didn't have any and I wasn't that dedicated, I'm gonna be honest. So that doesn't make an appearance, but I'm sorting it out by color now and by type. So to the left, we're gonna have the pumpkin. Straight ahead are kind of the pink and red things. Behind is the chocolate, custard, mayonnaise, meat substitute, mushroom substitute, and all the green stuff goes to the right. So I kind of left this in. One, I think sorting things like this is so satisfying, and I cut quite a bit of it out, to be totally honest with you. I think it's satisfying to watch, and it gives kind of an insight into how a builder's brain works. Like, I don't know, the little mundane things are my favorite things to watch, so I kind of made a judgment call. If you don't like that, let me know, because I'll stop doing that. That's really for my benefit, not necessarily for yours. So on this table, I do place all flour. I place the canned, it's so weird because it's jarred, but canned pumpkin and actual pumpkin pieces. So it's gonna change. I'm gonna do some jump cuts for each table so you can kind of see the beginning and then what the end product is going to look like. So I did size down a few pumpkins. I grabbed a few different sizes and colors again, because if you'll remember, we use different colors on the exterior. And then we move on to this table. Now this is eggplants, I think, tomato sauce, strawberry jam, and I want to say raspberry. There may be one other type. I can't recall off the top of my head, but you bet your bottom dollar I used that oversized Eggplant, there was no stopping me. You were not going to stop me. That's just kind of how I felt about that. And as blueberry, I use blueberry as well. So this is really kind of like the free warm tones, although blue is a cool tone, but this is that's what this table is. I did place some fertilizer, it looks like fertilizer, or maybe mulch underneath the table. I'm imagining those are really just sacks. It was really just filler because underneath these tables looks weird. And then we move on to this I believe is apple jam, the lettuce conserve, which is gross. I don't even want to think about it. And watermelon. So that one was a pretty quick table. And then this is all what I would classify the weird stuff. And those are the retail spaces. And then we jump into this last little bit here. This is a display. I use these tables from Seasons. They look like they're made out of pallets. And I thought they worked nicely with that eco lifestyle couch. And this is going to be honey and soy cubes, which I don't really like calling them. Are they soy cubes? Am I wrong? Is it wax cubes? Beeswax cubes? I don't know. It's whatever comes out of the beehive. So it's probably not soy, but I use those. I'm going to create like a little pyramid on the top. There's going to be honey jars and smaller cubes on each level, some even on the floor. Now this is the part, I don't think anything on this table will work as a display. I don't think you'll be able to sell it. You'll probably have to move items because I alt placed a lot of things. I think everything actually is alt placed. That's what's worried me about retail. So we'll see in the playtesting. Now I did, if you're wondering what I'm doing here, I stacked tables because I sized them down and raised them up and I was going to place items. I have to move them, otherwise they'll clip to the correct height or the original height. So I use these plants to mark where each corner was of each table, and I just kind of use them as a guide site. They're not going to stay. Do not fear. Don't worry. They don't stay. But that was just the only way I was going to get through this without having things be floating in the air. If that makes any sense. I'm not sure that it does. But on this note, guys, I'm actually going to leave you here. This is the end of the build. As always, feel free to leave a like or a comment down below letting me know what you think. You can also subscribe if that's something that would spark joy for you. I will be posting the screenshots on Instagram. You can hop on over there and check those out if you would like. I will see you on Wednesday when I post my next video. And in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely day and a lovely rest of your week. Bye, guys.
It's not the first time that I'm happy. It's not the first time I feel good. But it's been a while since that happened, knock on wood. I try to stay cool on the surface. I'd ask you to stay if I could. Though my lips are sealed, you still get me, yeah you do. That's why I said that we should be more than a couple. Of hours is not enough. So kiss me again and again and again, the way it should be. You see, we're more than a couple of hours away from love. So kiss me again. Follow wherever your heart wants to be. I'll try to keep up in your shadow, feeling good. And if we move too fast, I will tell you. I'll ask you to stop, but I won't. The way that we both feel about this just means go. That's why I said